All right, for everybody jumping in, we're going to discuss today why are bishops banning Mass and all sacraments, and what can we as lay people do about it. But I think before we do that, right, let's talk about what we're doing with our families. What are you and your wife doing? And then I'll share what we're doing.
Yeah, so really the inspiration behind this, actually, before we go into that, I like how you noted before, it's not a problem to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
I think by asking questions, we can really, it can lead us to solutions
Yeah.
and I guess give us more joy in this time of confusion.
Yep.
So this past weekend, we went to a drive-in mass, which was pretty awesome.
Okay.
Again, everyone stayed in their car. Windows were up and everything like that, had the AC going and all that. No one received the body of Christ,
Mm-hmm.
so it wasn't any risk of contagion there.
Right.
So what kind of prompted this video was that the day after, I was all pumped. The whole day we were like, this is awesome. I actually ordered an FM transmitter, so the mass was like transmitted over the radio so you could hear what the priest was saying and all that,
Wow.
which was pretty awesome. And the next day we found out that there were no more drive-in masses to be held in our diocese.
So
So
that's the bishop's call.
yeah, well, we actually confirmed that because this priest was a fraternity priest,
Okay.
right? And so we weren't sure if it was his superiors that were saying, "Hey, no more of this." But another pastor in the diocese was like, "Yeah, that would be great. I'd love to have an Easter mass because
Right.
that's really, to celebrate the mass on Easter, like the greatest feast of all, is really what we're going for." And then he said we got some clarification from the bishop that there'll be no public masses, and an outdoor mass would count as a public mass. So
Right.
we were like, shoot. So the week before we watched mass, and it was totally different. We can go into it later, like the difference between watching mass and actually,
Mm-hmm.
either going to a drive-in mass or like you this past Sunday got to go to in-person mass.
Yes.
So
Which was
it's
amazing.
yeah. So did you guys? You said, well, I'll let you go into it. You were in a barn.
Well, I don't want to go into all the details, but yeah,
Okay.
we were invited to a covert situation, and yeah, it was great. It was my birthday, and we were invited to this opportunity to attend a real in-person mass. And I don't want to give the details too much about it, but the cool thing about it is we were inspected medically before entering, the whole family,
Wow.
and then everything was 6 feet apart, every chair. And then at communion, the communion line, everyone was 6 feet apart. And I was just watching the priest, and he was just very careful and delicate on placing the host on every tongue, and
Wow.
everyone was aware of that. So, yeah, I mean, it was a great experience. It was something good for our kids. The priest preached an amazing homily about the salvation of souls and the need for the sacraments. And Joy and I afterwards commented, maybe she made the comment that he seemed like a missionary.
Mm.
He sounded like a missionary. He sounded like something you would read in maybe Paul talking in Acts, or, in one of the Pauline epistles about the necessity, the urgency of the gospel. So
Mm.
it was really great to hear a priest say that. And, we weren't in a Baroque basilica or cathedral. We were in a very humble place, but it was the Mass. And we're just grateful for that. We may not be able to go again, even till Easter or after Easter, but just to have that was special. When it comes to receiving the sacraments, they are, and Schneider said this, by the way, Bishop Schneider, when it comes to receiving the sacraments, this is divine law. This is not canon law. This is divine law. If a person is dying and requests a confession, the priest is obliged, even into danger of death, like on a battlefield, World War II, or in plague, he's obliged to go and hear that confession. Now, if the confession is 20 hours away, obviously not. You have a geographic problem here. But if that priest is 10 minutes from that dying person, he needs to get there and hear that confession. So we're talking about divine. If a person requests baptism, they need to be baptized. An infant should be baptized right away. So we're talking about the sacramental economy, soteriology, how people are saved. and what is needed. And we know, we've talked about it on the show all the past couple of weeks, that there are perfect active contritions, which are very hard to do. There's spiritual communions. We should be doing all those things. But when it comes to things like baptism, sacramental absolution, and extreme unction, this is divine law. So my perspective is, if your bishop is contradicting divine law, you don't owe him obedience with regard to that, because you can't obey unjust degrees. And so in that case, I have no problem attending a mass or sending someone who wants to be baptized on Easter and they've been told not. People have written me, I've said, call the Society of St. Pius X and go get baptized. That's my perspective. Ray, maybe you're not with me on that, and maybe people in the chat think that I'm wrong on that, but I think we're in an emergency situation.
Well, I guess the question is, because, over the last couple of months, we've been thinking about all this stuff. You know how it's like, we follow the law unless it's unjust, which is basically what you're saying. Is there any recourse to when your bishop says no? Is there any recourse to that?
I don't.
Would you just,
if you're dying in a hospital bed and you want to make a confession, I don't think you can set up an appeal to Rome.
Yeah.
You're in trouble. You can't get to confession. So yeah, I mean, I'm going to, if I'm in a bad situation like that. Now, I do know that certain priests feel the same. These are diocesan and traditional priests, like fraternity priests, institute priests. I've talked to them. This is not all of them, so don't go off and say this is everybody. And they're saying this is against divine law. If it's you're in mortal sin, I will come and hear your confession. I will make it happen. You can come and sit in a parking lot 6 feet away from me, or 4 feet away from me, or we can go somewhere isolated or in a box. Just don't take a selfie, post it, right? I'm going into confession with Father, right? We're not going to.
Yeah, tag the bishop.
And it's not. Right? It's also, some of these priests are saying, and I think that we need to be reasonable on this. I like to go to confession every 2 to 3 weeks, whether I have mortal sin or not. I just like, these are kind of like touch-up confessions, right? I'm just touching things up, right? And getting some advice from the priest, right? And just restarting. And a lot of these priests are saying, look, if it's a touch-up, if it's venial sins and you just want to kind of touch things up and get a clean slate, please don't insist on a confession. I think that's prudent and reasonable. If you're in mortal sin, I will crawl through broken glass to get you confessed. That's the good priest. And I know that there are diocesan priests, fraternity priests, and the SSPX is very open that they will do it, regardless of what a local bishop says. They will come in and hear a confession because they realize this is divine law. This is salvation of souls. And I agree with that 100%.